Great, so I'll just do a couple quick bios. So again, Derek Starr, I've been with the town of Westborough since August of 2001. And prior to that, I was in the town of North Attleboro as their conservation director. Their first one there was the first one in Westborough, was in that role to 2019, quite a while. And then with the Department of Public Works, that's 2019 as their assistant director. So I kind of have a different role, all conservation for 20+ years, now at DPW.
So I'm Kyle Grandel, I'm the arborist for the town tree ward. Previously, I was the operations manager for Public Works in the city of Framingham. I did stormwater, tree work, paving, the whole nine, and did a lot. I actually stepped back in my career to focus on arboriculture with Westborough, and that's taken a whole different corner and been amazing. Before that, I was with the town of Holden, and before that, I had my own businesses in arboriculture and forestry. So I've kind of jumped around over the years, but I've got close to 20 years in the industry now. And together we make quite the pair of operations people and asset managers.
The stormwater in Westborough is my adopted child. And that child is getting an A. So that's the goal for us. So. All right. So in this picture here, I'm going to just breeze through it real quick. A little bit about what we do. Our pre-flood mitigation program addresses block culverts. There's a culvert right here, very old head wall. This is a MassDOT head wall. Got a block culvert. I got a hospital right behind me, Whittier Rehab. Very, very important asset for the community. I got a block tree. I got a culvert right here on one of my main routes, Route 30. We'll talk about critical waterway flow restoration. Another double barrel culvert, very similar. It's in the same reach. Was flagged after I left conservation for the I-90, I-495 interchange project that's going on. I would not have flagged that. It's flagged as bank and BBW. That is an alteration that does not belong there. Clearly that's all sand. Okay, that shouldn't have been flagged. That should have been removed. Couple things that we look at when we're out doing our pre-flood. So we wanted to take a look at Mass Rivers Alliance mission. Our mission, similar to theirs, we got a goal that we need to prosecute every single day. And as the DPW assistant director, my role is an asset manager. I have lots of assets in my town, hundreds of millions of dollars of assets. That's our job. Kyle's assets are trees. He's got a lot of them. So we wanted to just kind of show how our programs, our standard operating procedures complement the mission of River Alliance. We actually just stumbled upon this at 5 o'clock the other morning doing something else. I never even knew that our SOPs that we're going to dive into, that FEMA actually had, EPA, sorry, had a model very similar to how we kind of progressed without any assistance from anybody. So in your community, understand the threat of flooding, identify vulnerable assets, identify and evaluate mitigation measures, and then develop and implement, in our case, SOPs. Many times, identify and evaluate mitigation measures. One thing that we can't do is move our assets. Kyle might have a tree with a picnic table. I can move the picnic table and get away from the target, okay, with the tree. I can't move a pump station. I can't move other assets. They're fixed. I got to deal with it. I didn't put them there. They're there long before even the Hatch Act in our community. Something that I just want to nail home a little bit as we go through this is what is the relationship between what we're going to see in the Wetlands Protection Act. Those 5 that are highlighted in yellow are critical to what we do. And all I ask is that you just please think about them when we're going through this and how they complement the Wetlands Protection Act. It's a little different in terms of the thinking of it. We are not doing projects, not a customary activity where an applicant is in front of you prosecuting something out. That's not what we're doing. We're out maintaining something that's already there. If I rebuild it, different story. Also, please remember the word alter. The changing of pre-existing drainage, flushing, sediment patterns, flow patterns, and flood retention. Think about all the things that we're going to be doing. There are alterations that exist today. All we're trying to do is restore the flow, changing of water level. The ones in red are the changes that are going to be promulgated, increasing the volume of untreated stormwater. Flood control, groundwater supply, prevention of pollution, public water supply, storm damage prevention. These are all interests that we work on. All right, a little bit about Westborough. It's chaotic being in the DPW. You can get sidetracked. I don't care how many hours you work in a day. You got to be organized. So how we did it is our town is divided up into 14 watersheds. We're proud to be here today because we are the headwaters of the Assabet and the Sudbury. And I take a lot of pride in that. We also have a small piece of the Blackstone. However, in that are 14 total watersheds. I took those 14, brought them down to 10. This is literally what I started with on the bulletin board, these photographs. To organize our community into 10 sectors. That's what it looks like. The 14 into the 10. Just a way of organizing the community. The foundation of our wheel was our maintenance program, just general maintenance, water, sewer, across all the divisions. And what we do is we assign a calendar, 2026, it starts on March 30th. We broke these sectors down into 4 rounds through the calendar, all the way through. People who in our community can look, see where we are and know, okay, I'm going to be here. We do a work order, we get to it, unless it's something we really got to, get to quickly. We did all the maps revised March 9th. Each sector is highlighted. Everybody gets these maps. I have them all right here laminated. Everyone gets them. Every division then goes out and does their specialty. Might be Watergate valve exercising in a particular sector. That's how we organize ourselves, and that's how our SOPs are derived. From there, pinwheels. Another spoke comes off the wheel, which is the pre-flood mitigation program. This is an example of Sector 8. It's blowing up over there. Sector 8 is one of our most vulnerable watersheds. It's our Jack Straw Brook watershed. Lots of assets that are located there. So the way we do it is the routine inspections. This occurs for all the stormwater assets that are in that particular area. Then we have areas that we've identified. I've been there a long time, but through my team as well. Special concern areas, there's 14 of them specifically in Sector 8 that you got to make sure you look at. Because if we're going to have an event, I'm telling you right now, this is where you're going to fail. And those get enumerated throughout. So that's just taking Sector 8 from the original, putting it down, getting into the pre-flood. This is also in Sector 8, just to kind of balance back to Rivers Alliance. This is Jack Straw Brook crossing on Bowman Lane. These photos are very current. We're just finishing up our new box culvert now. We've gotten many grants from DER, Ecological Restoration, and we thank you for the letter that you just gave us on March 18th, as we're going further downstream in Sector 8 for Jack Straw for another set of culverts. So how does the pre-flood mitigation program work? It runs from April 1 to April 1. What that means is I have a set of teams across parks, cemetery, highway, and tree. Very rare. They all know stormwater inside and out. They get educated thoroughly. During Public Infrastructure Resiliency Week, which is an SOP listed up there, which starts next week. It's the last week in March. This is an in-house SOP. We focus on infrastructure resiliency across the entire town. I do up a 2-page agenda. We just went over it yesterday. We spent an hour with it with the group. We're all lined up for next week. One of those items is setting the new teams. Everybody comes in, They get a very long presentation on Thursday of next week. I divide up the teams. I'll take somebody from cemetery, somebody over to highway that don't customarily work together. Lots of sign, everybody gets sign-in sheets. Here are your teams. Here are your maps. We go through quite a bit of education through that entire process. And then they go out and do the work. Here's an example. Doesn't matter if there's snow, there's a lot of snow. You can see the date. We're out there educating. It doesn't matter. We're going to continue doing pre-flood mitigation, even when there's 2.5 feet of snow. So with that being said, the pre-flood mitigation program is very deliberate. We've done many conferences where we can dive a little bit deeper. I'm very proud to say that we're being nominated for a national award based on 2 presentations that we did in Rhode Island. So we'll find out in the end of June if we're going to Texas, which I'm going to need help with. I'm a country guy. I live in Vermont, so it's going to be a little different for me. So, so we're here to help. You want us to come to your community, we can dive very deep into more of what we do. We're never satisfied. Unfortunately, the Mass Turnpike goes through my community. It's good, it's bad. But when they did it in 1953-55, it goes right by my reservoir. Not cool. So we expanded it. This just happened, March 12th. I said, okay, guys, we're gonna implement a plan. We spent over 500 hours last year, going from mile marker 103.9 to 102.5 in Upton. We survey located every single stormwater asset on the pike that comes to my watershed at the reservoir. It's my Water Management Act, not the state's. So it's all the regulations that come on my side of it. It's a lot. We're moving forward with MassDOT. We got some good things moving forward, but you can see the map here dated the 23rd. Now all those assets are picked up on the pre-flood map. So those maps are always refreshed prior to Resiliency Week on any assets that we've collected during the tolling period of basically March to March. All right, what's that look like when the teams go out? So again, public water supply. I got distribution and raw water on either side of this thing. So basically they go out, they clean around. This is actually a bridge, not a culvert. They'll go out, weed whack everything. I do have some sediment there. It's not right, but it's not affecting. We did take out a little bit right here because it was forcing against that wing wall, which I don't want erosion to occur. But the guys go out, again, I got 500 outfalls, 200 culverts, that's inlet outlets, so that's 400 assets just on a culvert itself. A lot of work to do when we go out there. All our outfalls are tagged as part of the pre-flood program. And that's the raw water on that side. Does anyone see anything in that photo? Make sure you take a look at the date, 8/29. What was in 8/29 August last year relative to precip? 0, right? Absolutely nothing. What do you see in that? I don't know, it might be tough, but can you see anything in that photo? I got flow. That is nine circumstances doing catchment and doing pre-flood. We have found water main breaks that had never come to the surface. Pretty cool. Why? Well, we'll get to it, but you can see you got some debris there. It's not perfect, but we monitor it. Take it out at some point. Got a pump station right there. That pump station is, that wet well is 22 feet deep. I don't know if a lot of conservation people, they just go by, they might see a little house, but don't understand what that is. That's 22 feet deep, 60,000 gallons a day, 80,000 right now because I got infiltration. When that floods and gets in there, we're in trouble, right? So we maintain to the backside of the asset from a conservation, hey, I don't need to go any further, leave it, right? But at least I can get the flows past the pump station from a conservation standpoint, from being conservative relative to the wetland resource areas. Again, tagged, that's the dry one. Why is that, why is that important? Well, it's important to River Alliance as well, right? About drought. So 3/3/9/26 drought status just got updated again. We're in a critical 3. So water is the most important utility, hands down, that we need to be cognizant of. That was 167,000 gallons a day, over 12 million gallons total by the time we shut this thing down. Lost, gone, in a critical full drought. If those weren't maintained, you never, like in most towns, you would never, ever, ever, ever see that. It's another benefit to doing pre-flood 6 times, 7 times, 8 times a year. What is alteration? So this is an area that is on private properties, church. I actually put this culvert extension in because it had rotted, because my high school is right behind me. Somebody went in, and it was identified in the pre-flood last summer, and put this, it's like a heavy duty piece of rubber. That's an alteration. That does not belong there. You're raising or changing the water elevation without going to the commission. Okay, I kept the same inverts. I didn't change anything. So that's been reported, but I'm no longer in that role to, having the authority to enforce. So this is located, that's located in sector 9 pre-flood. And we have it, my eyes. St. Stephen's Church, number 17, is one of the critical areas to go to. This is one of the culverts that lead to the pond. It's mine. It ain't great, I know, but that is a problem. Okay, that's a glove. So we already have cut that out of there, but all that gets identified. The special concern areas are important because our deployment of our teams are based upon National Weather Service warnings, watches, flood watch, flood warning. That's when we deploy. We also deploy in a flash flood. So if you got a flash flood, and we got a lot of time, you're only going to go to the special concern areas in your community because you might only have an hour at best. Right? So that's all you're going to in that entire shaded area. We also do Hurricane Preparedness Week, Resiliency Week, and then I'm doing many times mock. No one knows. A couple of Leesman might know, but the teams don't know. To keep them alert. That pond's right here. High school's right here. Putting that blockage there now affects my stormwater. I got a regulatory floodplain right down gradient across the street. It alters, that's an alteration. Detention ponds, I got 57 of them. Been maintaining them since 2001 when I got there. That's what they look like. They're all maintained pretty good. This is a big one on Haywood Drive. Right next to it is also a sewer easement. So if that detention pond's not working, it could definitely influence the sewer easement. They put the utility easement as one, sandwiched them as one. Our guys know they can go into the plan room, grab the as-built, make sure the pond is functioning, especially from a recharge standpoint, because over time they do, as we all know, they need some attention. Everyone gets a letter every single year that Liz abutting them not to do it. And then I'm going to switch over to Kyle. I found this interesting. 2/27/26. Again, not that long ago. Anyone from Lawrence? Anyone hear about this? It was crazy. Central Bridge. Sounds important, right? Central, downtown, what have you. 2 o'clock in the morning, DPW is out doing snow removal, and there's a massive fire underneath this very important bridge that is carrying the Merrimack River. I'm not here to say anything, but how does this go on? Unfortunately, it's a homeless encampment. Okay, I am not here to speak about that. What I will tell you is having programs in place such as ours will ensure that this does not occur. It can't occur. So the amount of money associated with that one instance, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, they shut it down. It's crazy. So that's what we try to avoid. Okay, and that just happened not too long ago.
All right, so thank you. We're doing good on time. I just have a couple of quick questions for everybody. Who in here is in charge of writing permits, working with the conservation commissions, things like that, grant writing oversight, hands up? All right, DPW directors? All right, how about anyone on the operations side? All right, so we have a very different mix of people, which is good. When we started this, we're from the asset manager operations side. So my career, my background has given me a gift and a curse of being able to look at unique situations and find fix for, which means we get the weird calls at all of the night. So when I flip over to some of the things we're going to be doing, it's taking what we've learned over our career and how we effectuate that. When I started with Westborough, I said, Derek, I want to have the best agricultural programs around. I didn't know that was going to entail into learning about the Wetlands Act, all the CMRs and the regs that go along with it, and what we need to do to protect our assets and our infrastructure because we have so much. So I had a good idea, but not what we're about to talk about. So our whole goal with this is to give you some more information and help bridge that gap. So this right here, routine beaver activity location, we give this to our conservation commission. We do this under our blanket permit. We monitor this. Beavers, keystone species, we know they're important. But we need to make sure that they're managed effectively around our important assets and resources, and I'll show you why. Right here, this is not our community, but this is pretty typical for what you see of a municipality doing to keep a culvert open. And it's a good opportunity to show you something different. You know, they're using whatever they can to ram through that culvert with a backhoe, whatever they have on hand. They're going to sit on top of it, stuff that pipe through, get it back open, do what they can. It's all wooded area up back there. In terms of an asset manager, I would look at this and say that's a perfect spot to put a beaver deceiver in. Beaver deceivers are great, but with that deceiver, you should be having an O&M, you should be doing pre-flood like we do to make sure that you monitor and take care of those, because when you put a deceiver in and it ends up looking like this, the original intention of the deceiver is no longer valid. You have the same problem, but it's impounded. What we need to do. As me trying to go in there with all of this, I don't know if you can see it, but there's metal here. It looks like essentially a walkway. It's been dammed upon. It's more work now to go in there and clear that out than it would have been. So as we're managing our assets and looking at what we need to do and working with conservation, we need to make sure that we do it smart. It's a better picture of it. You can actually see that square grid. Now you have a dam on top of your culvert again, doing the exact same thing you were trying to prevent. And this is the other side, the outfall of that culvert. You can see the water's kind of percolating through. Hydrology works that way. It's just going to cause undermine and erode that asset. And when I think of assets, I think of a tree, a fire hydrant, anything. And I think, what's that useful life asset and what's the cost to the community? Because I work for them. They pay my bills. I want to make sure that I'm taking care of them as best as possible. And in this instance, I'm not. So how can we avoid that? And through our pre-flood program, which falls under our sector maintenance umbrella, we can get to that. This is another example, not our community. Is anyone familiar with this picture or where it might be? Okay, good.
I drive home on this.
This is a little one-lane road, northern Massachusetts. There was beaver damming going on here. As an arborist, I look at the ecological benefits of trees and what goes on around them. I see two trees here, presumably white pines or oaks. They're gone. That's based on what stands there. I see a plate in the road over there. What's going on? Why is this way? How could this be prevented? Does anyone know what the cost of the replacement of a culvert is? Well, right, you know, at least 1.2 to 2 million, depending on what you're going on, minimum. And then you have the new open bottom culvert stream crossing standards you have to adhere to. So it gets expensive quickly. When you're talking about a one-lane road up in the middle of nowhere, you have to shut a road down and maybe there's 6 houses there that need access. You don't have that money. That's your whole budget for a year and a half for some PPWs for some things. So now they've got to plate it off. And the funny thing to look at is your culvert is here, but we're plating the road over here. What's going on? That's just water diverting around, having an issue. So through our pre-flood and sector maintenance programs, you get out there, you get ahead of it. It's more work on the guys the first go around, but once it's all out of there, you're maintaining, and hopefully you won't have this. Could it happen? Yes, absolutely. But we're doing our best to ensure that it won't. Well, this right here we have because it's a great example to talk about assets. 2 of our most important assets in this town are the Moore Street well and the Hopkinton Road well. Those are our workhorses for public drinking water supply. This is a zone AE. This map is based off of our FEMA floodplains. I'll show you in a minute. And then we have our sewer easement here as well, which goes around the wetlands and the Moore Street well. These wells were put in well before 1987. So we have to work with the environment that they were put into. They're built into floodplains. If we get water in those wells, we have pollution of public drinking water. You know, that's an interest in the act. We want to make sure we do that. We're trying to manage our damage, flood control and things like that. And we put flow restoration here because we're going to monitor that area, because to us, that's a critical flow area. And we created a critical waterway flow SOP. So we go out, we know that these areas and others in town are identified. Myself and our staff will actually walk those waterways, make sure that we pull anything out, restore it as we need to within reason, based on what the Wetlands Regulations Acts are and within certain proximity to the road, to make sure we're doing the right thing for not only the environment that we're in, but for our assets as well, because we want to make sure we protect those, because if we have a well go down, that's it, it's done. We're not coming back up online. So we just can't have that happen. And then also the sewer easements, we'll inspect those as well. Next week being Public Resiliency Week, we'll walk this. If there's an SSO, we'll find it, we'll know about it, we'll be able to do that. And then we don't have pollution of this area as well. This is just another map. That's the FEMA floodplain map. Shows the zone AEs, shows all of our culverts in this area, which are susceptible to flooding. We make sure we get out there. And it's really a lot going on in this area where we have these two wells. It's just something that we've had to adopt to. This is an example of when we do a critical flow restoration. It's in a zone 1 here. Does anyone see anything that might be a problem? That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. To most people, this is normal in New England. To us, I see a red oak here. And the picture's not that big, but when I stand next to it, it was this big. You know, it's a 36-inch red oak. It's down across the water. When we start to talk about the buffer zones and what's going to happen, we want to make sure that that water stays in there and it's not impacting that area. So we don't want to lose that capacity for storage. So when I'm talking about the regs for 1057 and keeping that capacity, we make sure that this area is open. And then when we go through and clear it out, it looks like that's it. It's clear afterwards. And what you can see here is we pull everything up to the side. There's a couple of piles of brush there. We make a debris habitat pile. We make sure that we balance the environment with all the species that are there, with making sure that our infrastructure isn't going to be impacted by this flooding. You can see there's another large tree here. It's leaning, it's broken. When it falls, we'll clear it, but there's no need to do that right now. And this is a great example of, and that this video should play, we'll get in a sec, of one of the pump stations. And this is the SOP that we came up with. If you take a screenshot here, that'll take you to the SOP on our website, but that's just what we do and why. And let's see if I can do this. So
We might go to make it play on the screen or.
Yeah, you might wanna touch that. I'll blow this whole thing right up. Oh, yeah. What do that?
This is during the day when there's no water in there. That's the pump station. That's a barrier system that we put up and install. And you can quite clearly see that there's 2 delineated areas with 2 culverts going right around the thing. And it doesn't take much of a storm for that to come up when we're at peak flow. So when we do that, those barriers that you saw, that was part of our critical waterway flow restoration. We put those out. We did that a year ago, year and a half. And then we trained on it, and then we update our maps, right? We make sure we stay on top of our maps, so that way when even myself or our new people get these, they know what they're looking at. We put that on the special area of concern down here, and then we train the whole department on that. We take every Monday morning, we do a fleet maintenance, and we do NPD for training. We carved out that day to show people how it got set up, and then the people that are designated to this area, when they go out and do their pre-flood on a nice sunny day like today, it's not pounding and raining on them, they get to deploy it, make sure it works the way it's supposed to. They go through everything, inventory is right, it's not broken, they put it all back and we're good to go. So that way, when they get that call at 3 in the morning, we know what to go and do. And this is just what it looks like normally when we get regular rain. And it's not going to take much for it to come up over. No barriers installed, you've got chemicals there because it's going to pump the chemicals in. It's just really important for us to balance the environment there with our asset. And this is just one of many assets that we have this way. So when we're out there and we have storms and we're looking around, we have, this is East Main Street for us. We have a couple of catch basins. We did everything in our power to correct them. We cleaned them out, we rebuilt them, we cambered them, and we still were having issues during peak flow. So we said, all right, we have to do a catchment investigation. And we pulled up the old historical maps and we said, okay, well, there's something that we think goes under there. And we found out this was in a church parking lot going underneath to an old easement. So we had to dig down, excavate, find this. And sure enough, there's a manhole there that was buried. We were able to find it, vector it, clean it, repair it, and get it back up to grade, which you can see right here. Now it's there, ready to roll, and we can service it, and it's in our inventory for GIS. We also take the time to train on it, and we bring in our consultants to make sure everybody knows what's going on and take credit for it for MS4. So just try and wrap the whole program around so everyone knows what's going on. So say we get a big event, right? We go out, we do our pre-flood, we know what's coming, the weather service tags us, everyone's hands on deck. All right, great. We get through the storm, all set, minimal issues. What do you do after the fact, right? Everybody says, I'm gonna hit my hot spots. And being an old DPW guy before I came here, that's just what we did. Alex and I used to work together in Framingham years ago. I was like, hey, go check your hot spots. That's what you did. We've changed the way we think about this as a holistic program. So you look at it and go, okay, we've got the flooding done. We're gonna go through the whole program all over again. We're not just gonna check our hot spots, because what happens if I get something like this log that shoots down into this 10-inch hole, it daisy chains through 2 manholes and then goes back out to a culvert, and that gets plugged up in the road. We never really get to that. So everybody checks everything. We pre-flood teams go back out. They might be tired, but we do it on a sunny, nice day and make sure we start to do what we have to do. Pull all that stuff out, get it away and make it go. Same thing, this 24, 32-inch barrel, I would not want to send anyone down here at 2 in the morning. Has anyone been out at 2 in the morning chasing storms? All right, it's wild. I've seen things I can't explain, and I want to make sure my guys go home safe. So part of this pre-flood program, doing this for the post-flood, make sure that those people are safe, they're rested, we're doing it at the right time, because I can send a couple guys down in here, they can get that out. I mean, there's a 4x4, there's all sorts of junk, the things that we found, chairs, chicken coops, it's endless, umbrellas, you can't believe what ends up in these systems. So as those of us who are tasked to get it out, we want to make it so that it's safe as possible, and it's effective. SSOs, right? This is a big one. We want to make sure we're not polluting. It's a big interest. So this is an SSO. It's in our community. It was private. It wasn't us, but we found it. But not only did we find it, we took the opportunity to train on it. Derek brought all of us out and said, okay, guys, 5 minutes before this, these guys were all joking and happy. They were
It was
so
dope.
happy.
Yeah, they were having a good time.
Yeah, it was a stinky mess. You're walking up going, what am I getting into? And you realize this is what an SSO is. And then you can see right here where the manhole is, it's leafed over. But right here is zone 8. That's our downtown Cedar Swamp. It's going right in there. So you've got pollution. For us, even though it's private, we want to make sure that we're taking care of our community, because yes, it's here, it's private, but it's coming our way. So why not do the best that we can? All right, so as part of our pre-flood inspections, right, we've got this, I don't know, 4-inch minus rock that's been washed out during heavy events. Right here is a precast wing wall, and then behind it is a sewer easement. So we have a sewer line coming through there. This is one of 24 miles of cross-country sewer easements we have. So doing our pre-flood here to make sure that this is scooped out, this is functioning properly, and you can even start to see here, the water doesn't get around. Once it starts to wrap around behind that and erodes it, that sucker's coming over quick. If that comes over quick and nobody's looking at that, and I know there are communities that may not even realize they're there, you undermine that sewer line, you start getting an SSO into a wetland, it's a big problem. So we want to avoid that, and just a little bit of homework, scheduling things out and making sure we get that away is a huge help. And then we'll pull out this junk and make sure it doesn't get in the hole. This is a map of what we were just looking at. You're going to be down in here, and it lists out the special concern in that sector area. So as our staff are out there, they know, hey, I got to walk out of that easement. They look at the number where it's going to be 7, 8. They'll go up in there and they'll start walking it. So with minimal input from someone that might be just re-whacking a headstone in the cemetery, they can take this with a little bit of coaching and a senior staff member and become a professional in the community, which they might not have been. This is the same map, just a little bit different. This is one of our sewer easement maps, and it's just showing you right here. This is right over here where that head wall is. And we're gonna walk all this next week and inspect all of it, so that way we know what's going on. But these are just one of our mowing maps that we get out, and we make sure we know what's going on. And then we go out and we do an inspection and we train on it. And this is big. Make sure you document what you're doing and train on it. And you give somebody this slip and they're, I gotta sign another one of these things. It's good because it's making sure that they're checking in and really learning with you. So this is an example of shoulder pulling and cuffing, not in our community, but we want to make sure we bring it up because it does affect rivers and watersheds. Right here, you've got a down gradient, you've got a little washout, you can see the asphalt's kind of falling apart, but they've shoulder pulled and they've cuffed, right? When you do that, you want to cuff it back farther. You want that sheet flow to go off of the road and really get across as far as you can of the woodland, so it's not hyper focusing on one spot, because when you do is what you're going to see. Down here, you've got a lot of patch. Back here is a perennial stream with a culvert, beautiful box culvert, 200 years old. And look at this date, 9/4/25. Just keep that in the back of your head. Right here, You see you've got some hot top for some reason. It's beautiful. There's nothing else going on except for this. You get a crack there in between the rocks. 916. Remember the tornadoes we had last year? Western Mass? Yep, blew through, serious rain. All of that puffing that you see on this forces all that water to go to the bottom here. And continuously erodes, washes out, and it's gonna blow this out. So you have this just bunch of junk, it's gonna blow that out. So as an asset manager doing pre-flood, I wanna talk about my guys and say, hey, if you see something, say something, we'll pull that out of there. Nobody wants to go pull that out of there. It's not a fun job. It's awful, but it's gotta be done. So that way this doesn't get undermined and fall apart. And then not just put the Band-Aid on it, but how do we fix the problem? Yes, we've hot topped it, we fixed the top, but go back up, fix your shoulder pulling, make it right. And then also I'll touch on this as part of our pre-flood and our critical water flood. We would cut this out of there, get it there. If that was 100 feet up the way, that's outside of our permit for conservation. We wouldn't bother. We'd let that meander if there's no asset, but we want to make sure that we're just being mindful of the whole program. And then this is Westborough with our Chapter 90 program. This is what our proper shoulder pulling looks like. You've got, water can sheet flow off there. It's not keeping it controlled. And then there's a culvert that crosses under. So it's supposed to do the way that it operates the way we want it to. So that way we're not impacting the wetlands improperly. And then, we have fun with this. We work hard, but we play hard. So we have Public Works Resiliency Week, but then we also have National Public Works Week. So last year, Alex, Derek, myself, we put together this plan. So it was basically a Easter egg hunt for these guys where they had to go out and they had to find this. But each scenario was based on an SSO, a hazmat spill, block detention basin, or a hydrant or something like that. And Derek, I thought the guys were gonna kill you, but we were marching through poison ivy, brambles, bush, stuff up to 3 feet high. And you would hide this card and you get the first card. And then you gotta take that clue and you gotta go out into the field based on that sector map we showed you and figure out where the next one's gonna be. And you gotta find your SSO. So you're trudging through, you're looking for bricks and anything else to find a little sliver of this thing. And then you get this one, and then you get this one, and you're going to a detention basin. We have 57 now.
57.
So you've got a detention basin going. And then you're going to the outfall and you're putting your hands 4 or 5 feet in to try and get this thing out, and it's covered in poison ivy. At the end of the day, I thought the guys were going to kill us. And I thought they weren't going to find it all. And as we were leaving the yard after talking, we're like, we'll give them an hour or two. 45 minutes later, my phone's blowing up. Hey, I got it. There's no way. And sure enough, 2 teams, 45 minutes or an hour. They came back, they got it, and they actually had a lot of fun with it. So it took something that, yes, this is our work, this is what we do, but it took it and made it fun for the guys. It was a day of training, we had lunch afterwards, but it made them think different. It's not just a DPW guy to invest, it's like, why am I looking for an SSO? How do I find it? Why am I looking for a hazmat spill? What do I do when I get there? And in the clues, it talked about that. So it made them use their minds and think and just push them outside the box. And I'm very proud of our guys and how they did it. I think this is our last slide, but this is a video about our flood restoration work.
Well, I played automatically. Must be.
That's you.
Oh.
As part of the DPW Stormwater program, staff will routinely examine our critical waterways to ensure consistent drainage and prevent costly damages down the line. Even a small blockage, if left over time, can begin to build a dam large enough to impede water flow. Occasionally, an object can become lodged in a culvert, which is a tunnel-like structure used to guide water beneath infrastructure towards the proper channels. Clearing blockages in culverts can pose a significant challenge to the DPW due to their restricted access. Depending on the location, a worker may have to be lowered into the culvert through a manhole, which will bring them deep within the tunnel system. Other times, it is possible to crawl through the entrance and clear debris by hand or winch. So much of the work done by our DPW is addressing situations early, before they pose a risk for Westborough residents. For more information about Public Works, please visit the town website.
for finding that chair, it wasn't fun going to get that, but that thing is a glove, and I was about 125 feet into that hole, and it was cramping down on me. And that's just gonna continue to collect more and more debris, and I don't wanna do that at 3 in the morning, I'd rather do it when it's 20 degrees out and sunny. But we get it out of there, and, we can have fun with it, but make sure it's safe, but with our pre-flood program, we can inspect all these things and see it, so, we're certainly proud of it and happy to share it. Because it's a change for us as a DPW, and we think it's something that can be adopted to the communities, and it helps with our environment, our rivers, and our wetlands and things like that, so. With that said, our last slide, hit it, maybe you can hit it. This is our information. We want to hear about any of these programs. This QR code takes us to our website, it talks about all our SOPs, and you can reach us there.
That's right now, and then we'll take a quick break and get into our next one, so. What are our questions?
So to do all that maintenance, right from where I am, we have a bunch of different SCMs that are various levels of maintenance over the years. Did you guys do like a blanket NOI with your conservation department, be able to do maintenance on all of your SCMs, or did you just keep them up all the time where you didn't really need to spend anything in conservation?
So on December 9th, 2001, I wrote a blanket. It approved on January 7th of 2002. That was in place for 22 years. And then there's been changes in conservation, because again, I left that role. So it was still active into 2022. And we now have 3 separate RDAs. I'm not a fan of that personally, but I have to do what is, that's what the new requirement is. I'm a believer. I think it's 310 CMR 10.06, 10.05, 6D. 10.05, 6D are orders for 5 years. That's what I had. I had an order for 5. So you can go either way, right? You just gotta watch that RDA maturation date. You just got 2 years on the extension, because we were in the polling period after January 2023 to whatever 2025 for an extension. So we're in that tolling period, so we got another 2 years. But you got to pay attention to that, right? Because you can't renew them. That's, in my opinion, it's my community. Something I can track too, to try to just do a quick extension for another 5 years.
Oh, so the RDA has the ability to extend?
No, I'm sorry. So that's the beauty of the order, is the extension ability for every 5. If your commission chooses 5, or if they choose 3, whatever they still choose to do, 5 is, in my opinion, permissible for that type of maintenance work. Separate projects, we always file. Water main extension or anything else, it's all files.
Thank
Do you get a grant to do your asset mapping, or who does that? Do you have GPS or on staff to do that?
We did get a grant to do a culvert asset management plan. And I said this at MACC, I stress that when we get a grant such as that, and of course there's gonna be in kind associated with that, that could be all farmed out to the consultant. We don't do that. Our guys are in the field, that's how they learn. That's a missed opportunity to learn. So we take the time, just gotta work hard so that they're out there during that culvert asset management plan. Relative to the SOPs, everything's written in-house. All of our stuff is written in-house. We do everything. So you said you had another question in there? You just said the question
And
again.
I was gonna ask how many people you have in your DPW, because it sounds like you have hundreds.
So, no, not at all. So 22 are in the highway, cemetery, tree and park. Water's got 6. Sewer's got 4. 2 mechanics, 1 electrician.
Maybe 40.
Yeah, I mean 53 total. Including Jeff, all our staff, engineering. But that's it.
it really comes down to effective time management, having programs. in place.
Well, how do you make that argument when, you know, again, you get your orders from, you know, a select board or, you know, the administration, they want you to focus on something else, and stormwater is not, you know, the sexy part of DPW, you know, snow plowing is probably, I guess, but, you know, like, how do you get them to focus on that?
Sure, we understand that there's a chain of command and everything. I'm also a very strong leader myself. So if we're gonna have a discussion, we're gonna have a formidable discussion. You put me in a role, you put me in a position. I know what I gotta do. And I also have MS4 requirements that don't go away, irrelevant of what somebody else wants me to do. So I make that very clear. I speak with very deliberate. We don't have those issues in Westborough. So the best way to do it is just bring those issues forward. The best you can in your community. Every community is different. Of course, from city council to Lawrence to way out in Berkshires, when you have all the waste, so it's all different.
I really like how it works together to solve the issue. Different in where I'm working right now, but so regarding the asset management as a whole, like checking the culverts and all. I know you said it's like a yearly program that you have, and for the sections that has been divided at 10. Is it regular, or if it's like you get a complaint from the resident or something, and then that's when you go out, or it's like regular ongoing thing throughout the year from the team? How it's like coordinated between people?
Yeah, so that calendar is set up where there's a dormant period at the end of October to the beginning of December. Probably about 5 weeks where we actually put our plows on October 1st. As a dry run, but we use that to kind of take a break, go back to the things that we weren't able to do through sector 1, 2, round 1, 2, and 3. And then we have round 4 again. So there may be a week where Alex's crew, we have 2 highway crews, maybe only spent 3 days in a particular sector. But that's okay, right? Because something else came up. It's all right. But he did his job, he went in, did what he had to do, and he'll revisit that.
And how do you keep a record of everything that has been done? Is the GIS that's
Yes.
to go through?
It is. Yeah, work order system.
We have a full work order system that we built, we manage it in-house, we do our own data collection, work orders, the whole nine, we have one GIS administrator, she's amazing. So, and with the sector maintenance program, that 4 rounds of sector work, when we get a resident request for whatever it may be, a pothole, culvert repair, anything, it goes in, we prioritize it, we go and we do it, and then we come back and grab it.
And this, the setup of whole work order and everything, it was left to the asset management program, like setting up everything in place, or what, it has always been there.
It was through us mostly, through our GIS administrator and the supervisors, with input from management, that's how we wanted that done, but, we did a lot slowly. I piloted a lot of the programs with the forestry side, we said we like this, we didn't, and then we brought it out to everybody, and said, you guys make what you want, and just rolled it out that way, and we started small, and we just did a flyover, pulled data in for culverts, anything else we might have, and then expanded, fine tuned it, and 3 years later, we're reverse engineering a lot of things where consultants are asking, how do we do that? It's free, you can get it off our GIS.
Sounds so good.
Can you speak a little bit to the asset management program that you built? Is it through like Esri products, like Survey 123, that kind of?
100%. It's spot on. That's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, to get back to, there was something I still wanted to add to the question. So, for example, I'm responsible for 22 people relative to the chain of command. Well, 53, but 22 direct. Just gave a promotion to someone in Alex's crew. Alex owns the stormwater. He owns this pre-fund. And he just got promoted. And said, would he marinate for about a week in that promotion? Not even. So, but this is what you're gonna be doing now that you're promoted. You're gonna be doing the quote capital system mapping for catchment investigations for MS4. So that's taking what we believe to be correct. Going out and validating what is actually in the field. It's a big project, he's already starting it. We were able to knock off quite a few, even though with the deep snow, just from desktop analysis, based on what we know. And he's going out and starting the field recon, so. Just because somebody was promoted doesn't mean it's, no, I just kind of, no, it doesn't work that way. Constantly being monitored. For the future,
Congrats, Alex.
yeah,
Congrats.
It's also a good opportunity to freshen up what we have with pictures, updated pictures of culverts, outfalls, putting eyes on them, actually going there, seeing the quality, if there needs to be any repairs. And then submitting new pictures so that new hires, whoever wants to look at it, can see an updated picture of what the culvert looks like as of last week, 2 weeks ago.
I'll close by saying, we're all struggling with the cost of the culverts. Jeff's working on multiple. And we have that culvert asset management plan that did have a rating system in it based on risk factor analysis. And we rated our 3 top that we're moving forward with our consultants to do the due diligence for the permitting. But if you're in a community and you're constantly flooding in all these different areas, is that an infrastructure need? Or is that a maintenance need? Some other issue that can be cured in-house? Like, we know where we are undersized in our community. We know. So we're not chasing something that shouldn't be replaced, or maybe it does, but it doesn't, it's like 5 years, 6, 7, 8, 10 years now.
Are you funding the program? Do you have utility in place?
We
or is
do,
it all-
thank you.
okay.
Yeah, I should have said that. So we spent a couple of years getting that up and running. We got our first fiscal year under our belt.
Mhm.
And it's going very well. So
And are you doing the entirety of the program or still some left on general fund?
the predominance of the entire program, other than some salaries. Yep. Yep, and Lady had mentioned that maybe that's something we talk about in May. About how we got up and running and survived. Survived it.
And a lot of this.
Still alive.
Yeah, a lot of this was started and the skeleton was figured out before we got that money, because you have to have something to self-advocate, so it's kind of like. In this world, it's so tough, I need this, well, justify it, well, we're gonna justify it. It's really hard to get one in front of the other.
I actually found an old Concom memorandum from 2005. That I gave to the then town coordinator, the coordinator, administrator, manager. Saying, hey, we need to take a look at developing a stormwater. That was in 2005, right? He's like, kid, he was called me kid, he's so young. We're not doing that right now. Just didn't go anywhere.
Great, well, thank you.
Thank you,
very much.
appreciate it.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break, so feel free to run the restroom and or talk to you if you guys need to, of course, ask more questions or then very much. Yeah, then we're gonna grab one of the mics, either you or Kyle. Right, so, I'll just let it keep. Alrighty.
I don't know.
Don't walk away, Kyle.
Need that mic back.
Have racks on you.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with that.
Yeah, so the freshman, it's like very well versed in like the process. We haven't covered them. After, you know, but it has a good, workflow. That you can really manipulate very well.
Yep.
And so if you're doing that in like, which is great.
So we just switched from showing 1, 2, 3 for work orders to actual field maps basically.
Field maps,
Okay, just I don't like this noise.
Yeah.
So you just switched over from that. I'm not doing like tax management, like more or less. We use, And then people, house maybe talking, yeah, I know, he doesn't work for it.
Yeah.
That looked like, already, you assess our own history based on those findings here, because if you look at something from 2 years ago, lines, droughts, that line is changed. So you want to rely on that person, right? You're out there looking.
Okay, we can use the arrows.
Is that priority?
Oh, very cool. There's a camera
So
here.
that we're doing it, right?
So you don't get shocked
The whole search
yourself.
one
Oh.
supervised data set, you go, okay, go to your priorities, that's fine, what can't you get to, and then you can top. Okay, you can do that on the fly, but.
Okay, but if you were to like.
So.
So,
Yeah.
it's like finding that product, I know.
It's just like, her and I started working together, we need to keep this real. And I came on just my trees, and I have a form for anything, I just had a work order and a couple of pictures, a couple of thoughts. This ain't gonna work.
Yeah, yeah.
So when we actually came out with estimated 30,000 shade trees, right, so, we're like, so. Her and I sat together, we dive into looking at the field maps, look at it as we go across, she didn't, I mean, in terms of, she knows a lot.
Yeah.
She had to do a lot of research on the wall. And then she would go out and she would look and go, okay, let's do something similar for it.
Yeah.
Surveys on this.
Yeah.
And then she would pull that in and she would tweak it. So now her and I are finding as we sit down, we start to work on products, we'll pull up the old dashboard first.
It's not, it's still sitting there.
She just, we didn't know we. So she's learning so much, so. So you knock you out. Reach out to them, anything that we have, we can give you.
Very good presentation.
Yeah, I try to switch to one map and everything, and you can carry out, who sees what. Now we have a centralized location, we can add each line, take you. And you're not, don't be one, big fan for somebody, because they have. And you think something so specific to me, and I'm like, without it, you. Right, and now we're finding something like PW allow everyone access to it, you're only using inside into it. And then just query it out, and we're still fine tuning it, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's way better than us.
That's a lot of things I cars that the one like. So.
As long as it's not bad, but it's a lot of work to get it from gate. And then once you have to see like, hey, I'm flying, and then you start to learn so much more and like, give me that, and go back to, hey, it's like. Yeah.
I know that we have people
They're made more customized, and now we're at the point where my product is got to say, sure, it's get that, and now we'll take what's it, that's that, you send it up to a third party. But they go back for each, and puts it in, so you have gas forwards. Yeah, reach out to planners, look at what we have,
Yeah.
and click it over to you, literally. The utility stuff funded, that parses up the different. I use some of stormwater, you use this one, because then we have our salaries and all line items, that's like general.
Oh, yeah.
So it all depends on who's doing it. Especially it's all stormwater, right? I think what it is utility. Not all, it just depends on what's going on. I don't do a lot of budget outside of my. So, I think it has to be. Just like a cruise. Westborough. 2.5 miles. That's
Actually, still with my parents.
that's chapter 9. That's cool. Anything that we have. Right. Yes, it's that's the way the law. And it's on aging infrastructure, right? So it's also.
Just time.
To increase that. With our like the street flood failure, getting expecting it, I think we're gonna add on a lot of capacity to gauge our light. So we're gonna have. Yeah, so they.
Very, especially.
Take the grants. Thank you very much.
Well, some of, at least one of the people. Only two, I think. Yeah, we can do that. I got 2 minutes. I am. Spring over. I tell you,
Right, yeah. We're really grateful to all our districts, located in that. Or even, I felt like I.
You thumb drive here? There's a couple in there, so I'm not sure.
Just don't
which
want
one's
it to
yours.
screw you up.
No, I think it should be okay. My notes.
All right, perfect.
Let me know if you need me to hit the slides, but you got the clicker. Yep.
Yeah. Alright. Okay, awesome. Hello everyone, happy Friday. I hope it's a good Friday for you all. I got a flat tire. Sitting right outside the front, so. I'm excited for it to be the weekend, but really happy to be here with you all. Emily and I are gonna present on the MassDOT drainage mapping guide. Myself, my name is Maria Briones. I'm Stormwater Unit Supervisor at MassDOT. I work at a headquarters there. Prior to being at MassDOT, I was in the consulting world doing drainage design, H&H analyses, MS work compliance, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, hi, I'm Emily Hargraves. I've worked at MassDOT the past 4 years in the stormwater unit. And yeah, I've been assisting with our drainage mapping effort.
All right, so a little what we're gonna go over. Talk about the purpose and needs for our drainage mapping. I feel like we spent a lot of time on that one. A little bit about the history of our drainage mapping efforts. And then we're gonna go through an overview of the guide, and hopefully to some people here it could be useful. We will be sending out the guide to all of you, so you can have access to that. And then talk a little bit about our lessons learned through this whole initiative. So yeah, I don't think it goes without saying why we need drainage mapping, right? Why we need an inventory of our assets. But just to kind of, emphasize it, it's really important for us, obviously, just to know what we own. That's important, especially as a statewide agency. It's really relevant for us for operations and maintenance tracking. We are using our GIS database to record inspections, and maintenance as related records, as many of you may be doing as well. Resiliency, spill response, compliance in general. Anybody here have an MS4? So do we. We are under a very old MS4 2003. I like to say our permit is old enough to drink at this age. It's almost old enough to rent a car. Let's just say no, just keep going. So it's really important for all those purposes, right? A little bit about kind of like our history as far as this effort we've been undergoing. We really started with kind of outfall mapping, and that was like an explicit requirement in the 2003 permit when we received it. So that was kind of like the first thing we attacked. Later on, we decided to do a drive-by LiDAR effort to pick up all inlets and manholes, and that was really effective. We got a lot of great asset and GIS through that effort. But eventually realized this is not really helpful without connectivity and just like understanding the entire system as a whole. So we wanted to pursue a pilot mapping effort that would kind of agency. That's a lot to take on at once. So that's why we took on this pilot mapping effort and focused on certain towns to figure out what is our SOP, how is this going to work. And that's when we developed this guide, is when we were going through this effort of creating a pilot mapping effort using consultants to support us in our mapping. Since then, we have also switched to internal mapping using staff, because we're kind of like, how else can we do this? How else can we be efficient? Which I'll talk more about both those efforts in a bit. And now we're kind of moving towards going back to using consultants and hopefully still doing some internal mapping. So that's kind of where we're at, is we're doing everything we can to expand, trying to find the best process, the best use of our resources and our time to do that, to eventually map out all of our drainage assets on our state-owned roads in the entire state. So like I mentioned, we had a pilot mapping effort. We had 4 consultants teams. We focused on 11 towns. This was we did desktop mapping, level mapping, as well as field mapping. And as a result, we were able to map around 400 miles in that time frame. These are all the towns that we focused on. And then we realized that was great. That was really expensive. So how else can we do this that maybe would be better balancing the need for the inventory, but also the cost? So we've been using the DOT staff, and I'm not saying we've hired DOT staff to do this specifically. I'm saying we borrow DOT staff from other departments to be able to supplement our mapping effort. At any given time, we have 4 to 8 mappers, kind of part-time mapping. Again, we give them assignments and then we check in with them. We do have a third-party QAQC. Most of these folks are entry-level, co-op, some intern level, and this is where the guide is extremely, extremely necessary. And then other, processes we have in place are very important, check-ins, etc. But the guide plays a huge role in being able to train up someone who doesn't know how to read a plan, doesn't know how to, use ArcGIS Pro or any of these other, tools, understanding stormwater systems, you know what I mean? Where the guide is pretty helpful with that. And as a result, since we started that effort, we mapped around 350 miles as part of that effort. So this is a little bit of an overview of the guide. Emily's going to go into some details on like the actual technical aspects of it. But before we do that, I'm going to go through a little bit of an overview, talk about, desktop mapping approach, the field mapping approach. What does quality review look like? And then I know appendices aren't even the most exciting thing people want to hear about, but our appendices are extremely, extremely important. to the set of our guide, and so we're gonna talk a little bit about that as well. Oh, you can read that for sure. That's a little small, sorry. But just to give you a sense of like what our, database looks like, it's, so we have 7 featured classes in this database, everything from stormwater discharge points, inlets, manholes, stormwater control measures, conveyances, interconnections, and who doesn't love a nice junk drawer to put all that other stuff that doesn't fit in one of those. So we have a miscellaneous featured class as well. And then associated with those, we have 6 related tables, like I mentioned, that are for inspection records. So that's kind of what makes up our database. And as far as our approach, so very, very big picture. The idea is to gather all the information you can. Usually we're using record plans as the primary data source, but we will use other layers as necessary, which is explained in the guide, to kind of supplement understanding what and how to map that area at the desktop level. Georeference these plans. So, but when I say georeference, I essentially mean bringing in a plan into the software ArcGIS Pro and orienting it in space or aerial imagery to kind of be able to eventually map those features via tracing, essentially. Perform a gap analysis, figure out where we weren't able to map based on that desktop information. If necessary, perform field visits to be able to fill in the gaps. We'll talk a little bit more about it later, but that has become much less of a focus for us at DOT, and I'll tell you what there. But that is something that you can do as part of the gap analysis. And then of course, a QAQC of all of the data. That has been a really instrumental step for us to make sure that our data actually is consistent. You know what I mean? We're not mapping things differently in one town as opposed to another, especially since we're such a big agency. We have so many people touching this data. Making it consistent has been like really a high priority for us. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Emily. She's going to talk a little bit more about like the technical pieces that the guide covers.
So hi everyone. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about our desktop mapping and our QA/QC process we have. So the first step in our desktop mapping is asking mappers to georeference the plan set. So kind of as Maria was just talking about, when we say georeferencing, we're talking about digitizing the plan set by overlaying TIFF files in our GIS map to match our map's coordinate system. And this ensures that all of our spatial data is accurately aligned to the aerial map that we're using. So MassDOT first has to comb through all of our record plans to find the most recent project plans for the specific areas that we're mapping in. And then once we locate plans with drainage details, we check to make sure that the plans seem to match up with the features that have been mapped through our LiDAR effort, as well as some of the surface drainage features we can just see on the aerial map and the overall roadway geometry. So this sometimes requires a bit of back and forth with the drainage mapping team and the mappers just to make sure that we're using the best plans to map. And these plans are then georeferenced to match the scale of our map, and we'll use one of 2 ArcGIS tools shown here. If there's a very clear scale bar on the plans that we're using, we'll use the rescale tool. If not, sometimes we use the control point tool to match up the features we're seeing on our plans to the features on the street. I believe that's shown on the right here. So then once we have georeferenced these plans, we'll then fill in the gaps and edit the fields from the features mapped by the LiDAR effort, but mostly create new features to reflect what's shown on the drainage plans. So we map each feature and then populate the fields based on the plan's drainage details. We also have an appendix in the guide that shows which are the required fields to populate as part of this mapping effort. Some plans have missing details, so we just try to fill in as much as we can with the available plans. Some best practices when mapping are making sure snapping is turned on and that all of our drainage features are snapped together. Making sure that flow direction is mapped correctly by mapping pipes upstream to downstream. So we found it useful to add arrows to our line symbology for the pipes to see which way it's flowing. And checking that the map and file set coordinate systems match up with one another. So our drainage mapping guide reviews our approach to field mapping, which is to perform field mapping after reviewing the gaps in desktop mapping. I will say that this is a very small section of our drainage mapping guide, but you are encouraged to use this section as needed, but just with the understanding that we're not currently updating it as software is changing. And this is mostly because we've learned to deprioritize this at MassDOT because of the process related to obtaining state highway access permits and the cost and time associated with travel to complete this data confirmation, kind of what Maria was saying earlier.
Yeah, I guess just to add to that, I mean, and this is where I think being a state agency and a municipality might, obviously be a big difference. I'd say like, if I had to put in percentage wise, the, amount that we got out of the field mapping, I would say, or the field mapping portion versus the desktop, I'd say it's like, it was like 5% or something of the overall mapping that we got. But it was a much higher percentage of the cost, just because of how much time and effort, and it was much more difficult just to be able to actually get people to go out. And then when they did go out, a lot of times they're like, oh, I couldn't get the answer anyways, because I needed the subsurface answers, you know what I mean? And we're not at the stage right now where we're performing a CCTV just to create an initial map, so not to say this is not something that we think should be a priority, for municipalities. It's just we realized that the return on the investment that we were putting into field mapping was very, very, very small for the, amount of information we were getting.
Great. So I'm going to start to talk about our QA/QC process to review the mapping done by our mapping team, but I first want to touch on versioning. Versioning has allowed multiple users to work on this mapping effort while also serving as a means to QA/QC edits prior to their integration to our final database, which sometimes we just refer to as our default database. Mappers will work in versions, which are essentially draft edits of the database or final data set. Versioning is not included in our drainage mapping guide, but it's a really important part of our QA/QC process. We have a team of about 12 mappers at the moment. So the versions allow them to work within the same data at the same time without applying locks or duplicating data. Also allows us to backtrack in case any mistakes are made. And these versions give each editor their own unique isolated view of the data. So our QA/QC process. So after mappers have completed mapping their assigned section of MassDOT roadway, we developed a review checklist that is separate from our drainage mapping guide, but it reflects all the main requirements in the drainage mapping guide. And this checklist summarizes the required fields to populate. It asks mappers to check that all features are snapped together and there's no floating structures, and the steps for notifying our review team. The mappers then change the status on their polygon in our mapping progress tracker table, which I'll get into in a second. And then they email our review team that it's ready to be reviewed. And as the reviewer is going through and reviewing the mapping section, they create bookmarks and comment on the needed changes and questions on the mapping. So then when mappers get their bookmarks back, they respond to each bookmark and verify that the change has been made, or clarification to the questions the reviewer has. Thank you. And so this sometimes takes a few rounds of bookmarks back and forth, depending on the quality of the plans and the overall size of the mapping area. And these bookmarks are sent back and forth as bookmark files. So once the reviewer feels that the mapping reflects all the requirements in the drainage mapping guide, they then reconcile those changes in the version and post the version to our default database. As Maria mentioned earlier, we have two appendixes in our guide, and Appendix A of the guide provides tables that list the details for every single field in each feature class in MassDOT's Stormwater Asset Database, and for our mapping progress tracker layer as well. And this contains all the fields, which is the attribute information and the different domains which are the drop-down options for each field. This section of the guide describes also the required fields for all stormwater features, as opposed to the fields that can be filled out with additional provided details or the ones that are populated through scripts. So part of our mapping effort, we have specific fields that are required to be filled out. Those have a little asterisk next to them. Appendix B has a lot of example mapping scenarios, especially how to map stormwater control measures or SEMs. And these examples are included to ensure consistency in the way that each of these scenarios are mapped in the stormwater asset database. This section has been modified to show examples where we've seen common mapping mistakes and to show MassDOT's unique mapping situations. So there's a lot of good examples in this appendix, but some may not apply to municipalities. We decide how to map based on what's important to us at MassDOT and our stormwater program. So like I mentioned, we have a layer in our map called the Mapping Progress Tracker. And this helps us keep track of who is assigned to map what section of MassDOT roadway. The polygons are usually going to be split up based on the project limits of whatever plans we're using to map that area. And this layer has attributes with the mapper's information, the plans we use to map that area, and the status of the mapping, whether it's work in progress, if it's going through review, or if it's completed and has been posted to the default database. So this is a good way for us to get a little overview of how much mapping we've completed to date so far. And with that, I'll pass it back to Maria.
Yeah, so, some lessons learned. Before I do that, 'cause I'm gonna forget, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Cambria. We should because Cambria works now for the city of Cambridge. Cambria and I worked together when we were consultants supporting MassDOT on this pilot mapping effort. So we have a long history with it even before I started working there. And she helped write this guide as well. We were working together on that. So when I saw Cambria, I'm like, she should be giving this presentation. Anyways, so the lessons learned through this effort so far to date. For us, prioritizing desktop mapping over field allowed us to make progress faster. It's just a much quicker way to get people on board and things in the map. You know what I mean? There's going to be, I think, a huge effort to fill in gaps and to feel verified at some point and have our district staff, maintenance and whoever else is using this data to kind of correct as they are in the field and using the data. But as far as getting this like preliminary base level mapping done with desktop has been, really essential for us to kind of get an SOP for that process. Track progress early and often. We didn't have that mapping progress tracker initially. And especially as we kind of integrated DOT staff to do the mapping, it was super necessary for us to be able to track because we were getting all confused. We were all, some people's areas were overlapping. And so it was really important for us to find a way to track that was easy to view, easy to pull stats out of, and just very simple for everyone. QAQC takes longer than you think. Maybe, I'd like to say we have a pretty high bar for QAQC when it comes to the drainage mapping. It has taken a long time, and it just totally depends on the people you have mapping consultants take less review. It takes less review of their work than it does to, review a co-op's work, for example. But I think it's been really instrumental that we've never pulled back from the review process, and we've always had external third-party review of our data. And thankfully, we've been able to maintain that same team as our reviewers from the beginning, because they really help keep us in check. As things evolve, as our program shifts, as priority shifts, as people who's doing it shift, we always have kind of consistent review of our mapping. The plan retrieval and the plan sorting process, also much more time consuming than we would have initially thought. We've learned that the hard way. Sometimes we'll pull a plan like, well, this is the only plan I could find. So it must be the only plan that exists. And unfortunately, we've had mappers map miles of roadway, only to realize eventually during the QAQC process, this roadway was rebuilt at some point and the drainage is not this. And you gotta throw, I hate to say, it, we throw it in the trash. You have to throw that in the trash, but somebody's spent weeks on that. And that's kind of really taught us to push, to verify the plans prior to putting anything. People get excited. They're like, okay, it's georeference. And we start tracing. It's like, whoa, let's truth check it. Near map, aerial imagery, street view. If your spidey senses are saying something's off, don't stop. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. And that's something we've had to really kind of really focus on during our training, people. It's to focus on not just following the steps, but like thinking about, does this make sense? Does it make sense? Don't reinvent the wheel. Adapt this guide. If you're looking to create an SOP for yourself, we have a guide. I think other agencies have guides as well. Getting TCR and like other states. But yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. And also adapt as necessary. We're on version like, I don't know, 3 or 4 of this guide. We have to update it somewhat regularly. I'd say at least almost yearly at this point. Just because we're always encountering new scenarios, you know what I mean? Encountering new changes that we want to make sure are incorporated into the guide. Sometimes we add fields to our data sets. And so we have to kind of constantly evolve. And then that being said, the guide will be available to you all. We are also hoping to publish it soon to our webpage. It is like an internal document because it's addressed to our mappers. So, but we have no problem sharing it with the on our webpage. So we'll put it there, and any updated versions will kind of be uploaded there as well. Whatever gets sent to you will be as of current as today. But yeah, any questions? Feel free, let us know.
I think we got one in the back.
Yeah, you mentioned the field review. Have you started doing any of that field review, or I'm curious how if you have started it, how you're getting the information back from the field reviewers and incorporating that?
So we did the field review as part of the pilot effort. And that was done, all that data is collected via field maps. Collector, I think at the time when we started it, but whatever, software evolved. So it was all done in field maps, and that is the same exact database that people are using the desktop app to edit. So it's all happening at once. All that changes are being made at once. So thankfully that's pretty seamless. Now currently we do have, for example, maintenance staff or other staff at the district level that for their own purposes are out in the field, are maybe collecting inspection information. So as they see things that need adjusting or remapping, depending on how much needs to be altered, they'll either make the change themselves in the field, or they'll reach out to us and say, oh, like this whole street kind of needs to be redone. And we might do that at the desktop level with their, information and insight. But we are doing a full sort of check of, the stuff we've got in the field at the moment. Sorry.
Do you have any of the data shared for municipalities to consume?
Yes, so whatever has been, like Emily was describing, posted to the final version, the default version can be accessed via our open data portal.
Okay.
So if you just Google MassDOT open data portal, that'll come up. You do have to know what to search for, because it's like a search kind of thing. So thankfully, I think we'll be sending around these, we're happy to send around the slides. But the names of all the featured classes are in that table and in the guide, so you can search, stormwater discharge points, inlets, or whatever, and you can download individually each, either the whole feature class, or you can download certain areas of the feature class.
Do you have like a there's URL that you can share out so that someone can get like real-time data without having to download it?
We don't have that right now. The only way to publicly share it is through the open data portal, and that's more like a our GIS section. I think I think that's the only way to publicly share it right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have a timeline for completing the whole in the state?
Great question.
I'm in Western Mass.
I have a dream. We have a goal of the next within 10 years, having the whole state mapped.
And I'm presuming you're working east to west.
Actually, not necessarily. We are prioritizing our TMDL watersheds. Initially the pilot was like, where can we get the best bang for our buck? And we focus kind of like on the 90, 95, 93 area. A lot of those towns that have a lot of our roadways was, we were just trying to get towns that had the most roadways. But now with this next like chapter, I think I'd like to call it, we're entering with hiring more consultants. I'm like in the middle right now, including proposals for this. Most of their assigned areas will be focused on TMDLs. And then from there, we everything else. So,
One last question. Have you mapped all the outfalls? Because there's a stretch of Route 8 in Cheshire that seems to be a blank page, and I know there's outfalls there.
they did map outfalls a long time ago as more just like an outfall exercise. I'm sure there are things that are missing. And of course, we're mapping outfalls as part of this effort. We're mapping everything, right? But we're not going asset by asset at this point. We're going all assets in a specific area, in a certain town or stretch of roadway. So theoretically, we should have most of our outfall data, but I wasn't here. I think I was in middle school when that was happening. I can't speak to like where there are gaps, but theoretically we did go statewide or MS4 wide. Maybe I should have said that.
So if I've identified a gap, is there a way to
Yes.
get that map?
If you know of where things are missing and you want information that you'd like to share with us, that would be extremely helpful. The timeline on which we map it is just going to depend.
Just that stretch, or literally tell you where they are located?
Whatever. If you're like, I know information about this, whatever information you have, if you have plans or something like that, then that's fine. We'll do our best, but I can't promise right now that we can like move anywhere and be like, we'll map that right now. You know what I mean? But I'm happy to take recommendations. I just can't guarantee that'll be next on the list. If you're a TMDL watershed though, you're probably next on the list.
I would say, for Westborough, if the community's looking to do the mapping, just start small. Like you just use the prioritization of TMDLs, just prioritize a section in your community, maybe that you experience, or it's heavy commercial or industrial, whatever the case may be. So you don't get, it's so easy to get overwhelmed, especially at your level. I mean, it's enormous.
Yeah, I take it one piece at a time.
So I had the luxury of that tolling area that we were doing for the mile markers for our reservoir. And I'm glad you said spill response, because that's exactly why we are doing it. We spent $12,000 in signs that we yet to erect. So we need DOT and get our permit for that, which we're getting there.
I'm not even,
But spill response was important in terms of the mapping. And one of the lessons we learned was, and we change all the time, is ensuring that we require fields to be mandatory to be filled in. I think you used the word, I wrote down populate.
Required.
Required. So they can't get out of the system. We got different people collecting data. They can't get out of that until that thing's done. We've all filled out forms such as that. So super, super important. It's almost like our QA. Did you do it? So don't close out. Missed it.
Yeah, of course.
I don't want a gap. If you looked at it, I don't want to go back.
Yeah, that's something we constantly have to remind our mappers to like, put the RTS Pro on one screen and then put the the table of required fields on the other, because it's constantly something where like, well, I wasn't sure, and so I just left it blank. It's just gonna come back in QAQC. So, yeah.
In the mapping pages, so 2009, they resurfaced this section of Westborough. When I was in conservation, I was the Turnpike Authority at that time. But they had to file an NOI because they had to make some changes. So when I called DOT, they actually sent me goal plans, and I said, hey, go back, try to find something from 09, District 3, and they did.
Yeah.
We started with the desktop, but we did field validate, so it is important as things change. And
Absolutely.
it may only be a couple mile markers that change
Yeah, yeah,
in an area.
for sure. Yeah, the plan part of it has been
Mhm.
during. And we're broken out into 6 districts as well. So the districts, they operate a little differently from district to district, so, yeah, that's fun for us, since we are at a headquarters, to be able to coordinate that. Well, we're learning a lot. And to your point about, having people that like understand and kind of like have a ownership over data, I would say as far as like hiring consultants and versus, using the staff that we have, like, I'm a huge advocate for the internal effort, because people have ownership over that data. If you work for DOT and you're working on this effort, now it exists now. We're a very large organization. And so for us, at headquarters to build this beautiful data and then have no one at the district level know it exists or know how to edit it or know how to use it, it's like you might as well put something back on the shelf and say, oh, look how pretty it was. It didn't really serve, like, you know what I mean? Like, have people use it. So I think that having your staff understand how data was developed, have a hand in it, be able to play a part in making it better is like really important. Not to mention all of the training that we, did to our younger staff to be able to do this. I just think it's super invaluable.
Are you, if any community is like doing a mapping exercise and they have the majority of their roads are DOT owned maintained, who do we send that data to, that stormwater data?
Us. You can send it to us. You can send it to Emily. Us. We will figure out how to integrate it into our.
And are you checking with communities? Again, I'm in a community and I've been on the state highway layout website and there's the layouts from the 50s, so you're gonna have to come out anyway, to the towns. But, are you checking with the town to see if they have some GIS? Again, not everybody's gonna
Sometimes.
have.
Yeah, sometimes we do. And that's in the guide. It's like, municipal data is an additional data source that we expect people to use as it's available. Every town is different. So it depends on, how easily accessible that is. We don't necessarily, every single town we're making a roadway, like our interstates, we don't expect, y'all to have that kind of information. But for some of our like secondary roads and things like that, yeah, it's much more important for us to tap into the data you guys have.
On that question, I'm wondering, about the ownership of the assets. So I guess MassDOT, on the DOT roads, the assets are owned by DOT and towns own their assets. Do the towns consider those DOT assets to be part of what they would map generally, if they were doing the mapping?
Our town's mapping assets on DOT roads, that is a question for you all. I would imagine at a minimum, if you're in MS4, you're mapping the interconnection, right? That is a requirement of the MS4. I think probably each town is a little different and each roadway is a little different. How much does it impact whatever, you know what I mean? Is this stretch flooding? Is it a maintenance issue? You probably would want that mapped, one way or the other. So there's no obligation on DOT's end. Obviously, we take responsibility that whatever's on our roadways is our responsibility to map. But I can see there's many situations where it's like helpful to have that information, and maybe you don't want to wait for us.
And you're correct, it's that your districts are all very different.
They are.
So if you're in one of those districts, I don't have to tell you. If you know, you know. I just know I can do it. And so like a lot of our main roads in town are DOT owned maintained. But we are in a district that doesn't really pay attention to us, so we, consider those part of ours as well. So if we're out there, cleaning or something, we're like, well, they're not gonna come out here until there's a problem, so.
I would absolutely be a 100% failure if I did not perform maintenance daily, weekly, monthly, yearly on state layout. My community would fail miserably. So we take it on very serious. It's all throughout. We have to,
Sure.
our roads are shut down And to step it even further, for our MS4 wet weather sampling, because one of our vulnerability system factors was clay sewer pipe, which is actually in layout of the state. We're actually doing wet weather sampling of state outfalls. So if we write on the chain of custody that that's a state layout outfalls, we're very deliberate about that. So if it comes back as a hit, when I do my catchment, at least I know I'm at state layout, because maybe there's something else going on that isn't part of mine, aside from if it's just bacteria. So we've actually taken it a step further and taken it on the chin, really,
Sure.
we're doing it. So,
Yeah, and I totally understand that every district operates differently and has different reasons with it. I don't work for district, nor do I work for maintenance, so if you have a question, or you want me to send something along, I'm happy to do it. So, but yeah, I mean, anything on this, I'm happy to support as far as like the, questions on our data, how do we exchange that information? Yeah, very happy, and I'm happy to learn from you all as well. Obviously, we're a work in progress, and we have lofty goals, but I think we'll get there. I would help if we had a newer too, but that's a different story. So, all right. Oh, sorry. One last question.
I know you guys are just starting, and it seems like a great start. And probably you're just focusing on what you own, and it's not going back into like what the town or city owns, but basically MassDOT do some projects in some roads that are city owned or town owned, right? And so what happened with those as-bills? Are you guys planning to map those too in your mapping? Or I know sometimes, thankfully, Framingham has been really great receiving some design plans at least to check those assets, because we will be the ones who will be managing those assets eventually. So I think, I don't know if you maybe thinking in the long run future, are you planning to add those into the map as well?
So town roads that maybe DOT is
Kind of project on.
Yeah. No. But I guess the short answer is no, because they're not our assets. I mean, and the construction advertisement program and how the funding works and like all of, those intricacies are really kind of separate to our mapping effort. We consider our DOT road assets to be the goal of this particular asset management, mapping effort. And I do understand that there are, obviously there's, projects that are DOT executed for towns. But I would say, as far as the inventory goes, we're not planning to integrate that into this.
Okay.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. All right, so lunch break is happening now. Please go outside and get some sunshine as well. The doors will be unlocked until 1, and our lunch break goes until 1:15. So just kind of keep that in mind that you might need to have the doors open. If anyone has any nut allergies, please let me know, because some of the stuff does have nuts in it. But otherwise, the plates of sandwiches are not labeled. So there's chicken salad, tuna salad, turkey and fontina, and then a vegetarian option with tomato basil mozzarella. But besides that, do you have any other questions? From that point? Great.